Thank you all for coming to speak about the topic.
Women in the music industry.
So the music industry is the boys' club.
1 in 5. I'm going to leave the floor and get each of them to speak to what they do.
Regulators are shaping our city through overburdensome regulation. Because why is cultural activity deemed a higher risk than eating and drinking? We have this archaic regulation that is still attached to what is the perception within regulatory bodies of what a performance venue is, when really what they should be doing is shaping their regulation around the needs of the citizens. Because I see these sorts of spaces and the news agency and 505, Oxford Arts Factory, I see them equally as important as Belvoir Theatre or the Opera House or any of those main stage spaces that are funded, that are cultural institutions that we value and that don't have the same regulatory restrictions that a commercial live music venue have. And so I'm campaigning for that at the moment, because if that were the case, think of the possibilities.
I'm very passionate about these policy changes and seeing that different spaces can be occupied. It's not just about going to gigs at the Opera House or the Belvoir Theatre. I think there's beauty and there's excitement in seeing something, especially something so new and fresh, in a very different space that's not necessarily as developed as it would be if you were going to see it at the Opera House.
People have nowhere to go from their lounge room to the Opera House. And you won't have the festival circuit, you won't have the Opera House.
You need a career pathway.
And it's those small to medium spaces that actually pay musicians' mortgages. And those are the bread and butter spaces where people gig every week.
Investing in the arts? What a novel idea.
More. And I think that it's a little bit more than just a problem with licensing and not enough venues. When you walked outside of my gig in the breaks in the 70s and the 80s, you would go to the next pub and there'd be a band, and you'd go to the next pub and you'd go and see your friends play in your breaks. There were so many places to play. The problem is that the public need to demand it.
You know, I think there are issues with spaces, and, you know, audience development is definitely something that Sydney in particular, but the music industry all over Australia needs to think about.
People in general, I just thought that if I was a young singer starting out today, I wouldn't know how to give them advice.
There's not a lot of all-age shows in Sydney, so when you can't expect people to turn 18 and suddenly have this voracious passion for live music. Brisbane has a fantastic live music precinct, you know, with venues 12 venues within a couple of 100 metres of each other, and you know, you can go out on a night and bar hop like that.
And I think it's the cost of doing business for artists, it's the cost of doing business for venues, and it's the cost of doing business for audiences too. You know, working together as a sector and nurturing that.
This song is called Woman. It's specifically targeting the plight, challenges of women domestically, corporately, socially, in every level throughout history.
I think the electronic music sector in particular is very male dominated. I think there's this pre-existing I guess ideas around what women are innately good at, and I think they're wrong. And I think it's also based on stereotypes around, you know, women not being into production or technical roles. The industry is a changing thing. It moves, you know, what it is now is not what it was 10 years ago, and not what it was in the 50s. You know, I think we have to be flexible, we have to be open to new things, new genres, new, you know, change, and you know, so there's a huge demand from audiences to see women. But you know, I think there is a huge willingness from men and women alike to, you know, see the balanced, you know.